You know, the great thing about stacking is the longer you do it, the more you see that it's a never-ending evolution of learning. Pros, cons, falsehoods, everything in between. But lately, I've noticed that there is one piece of feedback that I've gotten a few times, which is pretty interesting to me, and I wanted to share it. So, recently, a few different commenters let me know that they thought that I had a low opinion of stackers in general. And I find it interesting because to me, one of the big things about this channel, as far as like how I look at stacking and just anything in general, is it's not my job to tell you what to think. It's really my goal to just talk things through and kind of give insight and perspective into, different ways to approach, common problems or common, misconceptions. It's interesting. Now, with regard to, other things like the market or things like that, I may give my opinion. But with regard to stacking, that's definitely up for debate. Now, first and foremost, like I said, I do not have a low opinion of stackers. In fact, I think in a lot of ways, stackers are way ahead of the curve, especially the ones that have been doing it for a while. Mainly because, again, you come into stacking, silver stacking, with so many preconceived notions about what it'll entail, how it's going to go for you. You're going to get in and it's going to double up, or, it's going to this price or that price, or, if you buy this particular coin, it's going to be an absolute collectible. There's all of that and everything else that you could possibly imagine. But the thing is that, as you go through your stacking journey, you realize that a lot of that hype and FOMO and all the different things about so-called experts or self-proclaimed experts speaking on subjects like the economy or finance or things like that, that a lot of times they're not all they're cracked up to be. Which is comedy, which is fun. I mean, that's one of the great parts about learning, in the stacking community. But where I say that the stacking community is ahead of the curve is that really, I think, stackers go into stacking for a variety of reasons, whether it's to, grow their purchasing power or save money or, collect or whatever it is that they're doing with, their silver and gold stack. But I think the great thing about stackers is they seem to have a huge thirst for knowledge. First about, metals and just learning the ropes of buying silver, buying gold, understanding the pros and cons. But then it evolves into something else. I mean, then you start watching, Mike Maloney telling you about how the ancient Babylonians had 7 pieces of silver or whatever. Or you start listening to Peter Schiff and, listening to him talk about how gold and silver, is a way to fight the Fed and this and, great investment and, it's going to go to the moon when this happens. There's so much room for that in the stacking community. There's so much desire for, information, which is what makes those people, popular. Again, Mike Maloney, I think he's a great, I almost called him Mike Baloney. Again, these Freudian slips, I tell you, they get you. But, Mike Maloney, I think he's very well-intentioned. I do think at times he's like, a little over the cuckoo's nest because he just goes full throttle, gold and silver. Same thing with Peter Schiff. Give Peter Schiff, a lot of credit for the 2008 downturn. He was one of the voices back then that was, shouting from the rooftops about what to expect. And slightly differently than other people, he was really pointing specifically to what was going to happen. Not just saying, oh, the stock market's going to crash. He was, really pointing at the factors that ended up working out, kind of like a Michael Burry. But as you've noticed, after that time, after, Dr. Burry had his moment in the sun and, Peter Schiff had his, claim to fame, ever since then, they've turned into basically broken clocks, singing the praises of, oh, the market's going to crash or this is going to happen and, this is it. And we just keep waiting. We keep holding our breath for, are they going to be correct? Again, you keep saying it long enough, yes, you are going to be correct. The market will crash, but it's also going to hit all-time highs, and it's also going to do other things. I mean, if you say it long enough, it's going to come to fruition. Now, the interesting part, most of those things are market-based, right? Stock market, that kind of thing. You don't really see that with the stacking community. Now you see the hype artists. You see the, it's going to 50, or it should be based on this. It should be, valued at this because the national debt is this, and if you value that in silver, it's this many ounces, and the price would be all these ridiculous concepts. But they're interesting, right? They really show you like, wow, there's some very special individuals out there who are just thinking outside the box, and that's great, right? That's what keeps life interesting, right? People who think outside the box. But there's some sort of an invisible barrier there that you probably shouldn't go past as far as going off the deep end. Again, so many times in the stacking community you hear about people who just went balls to the wall buying silver, dumping in thousands of dollars buying huge bars during the hype, and then getting taken to the cleaners when spot falls. Not only that, but then they drive up the price for regular stackers and collectors who have just been dollar cost averaging and things like that. It's crazy. But again, the big thing with the stacking community is they're eager to learn. And I think many of them end up learning, the hard way by getting burned with gold and silver, particularly silver, by stacking, at least initially, until they learn, hey, you know what? I had it all wrong. It doesn't work like that. I should have probably listened to somebody different than the hype artists or the bullion shills or the, whatever. But I think my big, emphasis on that, on not, falling for the hype and the FOMO and just, really taking a step back to look at what's important and what's not, kind of comes off as, he thinks stackers are idiots, or, stacking is stupid. Now, occasionally I'll say things like my video yesterday where I was talking about, silver and how, people probably, look at it, regular people who know nothing about silver, if they saw it, they would probably just look at it and be very dismissive of like, okay, that's somebody's coin collection or grandpa's collection. Oh, whoop-de-doo. But they have no idea what the actual value's sitting in front of them. And that was the point I was trying to make with silver, is just that, explaining things, especially in this world of unlimited information, the part that people forget about where we are, like, in this current society is, it's never been like this. It has never been like this. The last 15 years plus, where everybody has a smartphone and has access to unlimited information, correct information and incorrect information. Make no mistake, false and completely inaccurate information dominates. So, the fact that, everyday Joe has access to unlimited inaccurate information, that's huge. That's huge, especially when you think of, all of these preconceived notions that we have about, silver would be useful in the SHTF because we'll use it as a barter mechanism. So you're telling me that someone who has no concept of what, silver is or what its value is, they may know it's, silver, but they have no idea whether this is real or fake, and they have absolutely no idea of what its value is. You're telling me that they're going to not look at that and tell me that, okay, that piece of crap's worth $1. And so I'm not giving you anything for that. I don't care if you give me 100, but you want me to give you 100 of these to whatever costs $100 before the SHTF? That's the world that we're going to be in. That's the wall of just, misinformed people that you're going to be up against. Now, some of the great comments from yesterday were that, well, that could be true, Chris. There's going to be a lot of people out there that, in a real SHTF that just are completely or malinformed. All right, great. And the point that, that some of the commenters made was those will be the first people out the door. All right, that is a fair point. That is a fair point. I didn't want to go directly to, to that assumption that, the first people to tap out would be the, the low information people, but it could be. It could be. However, I also think there's something to be said that, the people that some people would look at and say, you're not the sharpest tool in the shed. Those people somehow have a very interesting knack for survival. I don't know what it is. There's something there. There's something there that goes against Darwin's you know survival of the fittest. And it's funny too when you think of like, when if you told someone survival of the fittest, they're obviously, I would say, a good, if I had to guess, if I was a betting man, which I am a betting man, so I would bet that probably 80% of the United States population, if you ask them to explain what Charles Darwin meant by survival of the fittest, they would explain to you that what he was saying was that, the strongest are the ones that are going to survive. That, the fittest, the strongest, the healthiest, the best specimens of us are going to be the ones that survive. And that is completely not true and not accurate at all. All he was talking about as far as fitness was fitness to adapt to the environment and reproductive success. So there's that. But I mean, these are the battles that people apparently are going to be willing to wage in an SHTF scenario. That's why when I talk about stacking and like these preconceived notions, it's like you got to know who you're dealing with. I mean, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. And I mean, the thing is too, the other part, like with regard to like the SHTF and stacking and all that, is just that it's going to be really hard to I mean, to me, the thing is, I think when most of us think of an SHTF, that it's going to be like Mad Max, that it's going to be just the end of civilization as we know it, as opposed to something that we actually go through. And so the interesting part for me is like when I think about like the like value proposition on the back end of like trying to store value in something like this, as far as silver and gold. Again, the reason that, when you hear these things about silver and gold being, recognized, particularly silver, for thousands of years, somebody decreed that it was monetary, and then it just got used as monetary, as a monetary value. So without that impetus of if there's no government, if there's no monarch telling you that, telling the general masses that silver has value, it's just not going to happen. No one's going to adopt it. Now, there might be a small cabal of people left over that understand its value, but what good is it going to be for, to you, other than just the actual industrial uses for it? And there are many. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you have silver, I guess you could use it for industrial purposes, electronics and things like that, if it still works. But, I mean, it's interesting. And so, again, the main point is that, do I have a low opinion of stackers? No, I'm a stacker. More of a stack-collector, but still a stacker. So no. But I do have a low opinion of plenty of the, bullion shills and the hype artists, because I think they do such a huge disservice to the stacking community by bringing new people in, which you would think would be a good thing. But they bring in new stackers or new buyers with bad intentions, basically just to double up their money and get out. What all that does is make money for the bullion dealers and screw the regular stackers. It's crazy. It's crazy. In fact, they're probably doing the biggest disservice to the stacking community by doing that. And yet, again, just like anything else, right? That kind of stuff gets the most attention. Hyping stuff up and, making false promises. That stuff is what people want to hear, whether we like it or not. But there has to be, at the end of the day, that moment of pause, that moment of perspective, because if no one out there speaks up and kind of gives, some different perspective, then we're all going to end up falling for the hype.